trade agreement. This is an initiative that my boss, Ambassador Schwab, announced in October 2007. She said that the United States, together with many of its trading partners, would be seeking to negotiate the ACTA. And this initiative brings together countries that are as committed as the United States on combating counterfeiting and piracy. And this initiative is intended to be a leadership agreement to raise the international standard for IPR enforcement. As many of you may know, we have the World Trade Organization Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, and that's the TRIPS agreement. The TRIPS agreement, however, was negotiated over 10 years ago, and there have been a number of developments since the negotiation of the TRIPS agreement. And I think each one of the speakers mentioned the internet and what a challenge the internet is in combating counterfeiting and piracy. And that's why ACTA is intended to deal with these new issues, the new challenges in our digital age. And also, it's intended to deal with the level of sophistication counterfeiters and pirates are using nowadays to distribute the goods. I think many of you may have seen in the New York Times last winter, there was an article about a very large amount of pharmaceuticals that was being distributed and found in the UAE free trade zone. They found that this shipment of pharmaceuticals started out in China. It was moved on to Hong Kong. Then it ended up in the UAE free trade zone, where they disguised the origin of those goods, and then moved on to the Bahamas, and was being sold to American consumers under the guise that the pharmaceutical was coming from a Canadian internet pharmaceutical site. And so counterfeiters and pirates are becoming very, very sophisticated, and governments realize that we need to do more to address these new challenges. So the ACTA is a cutting-edge agreement, and our objective is to complete the negotiation before the end of 2008. We will try our best to do that. This is a cutting-edge agreement because, unlike any other trade agreements, this includes components that hasn't been included before. Like many of our free trade agreements, it has a legal framework component, which requires countries to put into place laws so that criminal actions, civil actions, administrative actions, and so on can be initiated. But it also includes a component called enforcement practices. And this is a component where countries will be obligated to put in place mechanisms that we've seen have been effective in enforcing IPR. And just to give you a couple of examples, this is having judges or enforcement officials who have specialized training in IPR. This is requiring countries and enforcement agencies to interact more with right holders so that there is an information exchange mechanism in place. And then we also have the international cooperation component, and Mark mentioned earlier in his talk that international cooperation is very important in this fight against counterfeiting and piracy, and it is, because this is a global problem. And so we have this international cooperation component that will weave together what many countries are already doing. We have a number of arrangements with our trading partners where we're exchanging information so that we are able to have more effective enforcement actions, for instance. The objective is to raise, through ACTA, the IPR enforcement standard internationally. Moving on to the free trade agreements. Our free trade agreements is one of the most significant tools that we have to have broad and deep changes in governments' legal systems. We negotiate these agreements. After that, we ensure that these agreements are implemented